All right, so when mixing this this paint, there's a little crumbs and stuff in here. I'm gonna take that out. Right. You always start with your weaker color. So in this case, my weaker color or my weaker pigment is white. I'm going to take a little bit of this black, and you'll see how much, the very tiny amount it takes to then take this white into gray. That black is very powerful. So if you start with black and you try to add white to it, what you'll get is just a different version of dark gray. Okay, so this way I can control it. Now a little bit more. I'm trying to get to that number 5. And then the other thing that's going to come in handy is this little thing here, right? So if I look at that number 5 is right there, and I compare, all I can do is visually compare, right? So I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to see. If I can't see it that way, I'm going to do that. And if I do that, can you guys see that clearly? Yeah? It obviously looks much lighter than that. It's probably closer to like a value 7. Okay? So you want to make sure that you're testing it out. Obviously, that's not going to work, so that means I need more black. Right? So I'm not going to just try to get it at one shot. I'm going to go slowly so that I don't overshoot. It's going to be much more difficult to get to that number 5 value, especially if I run out of white paint. And I'm going to tell you guys, you're going to run out of white paint. So you might as well get another tube, order another tube, because it's going to happen. I think Michael's is now open, and Blick is now open in certain locations, so you can get more paint. And just get a tube of white, because you're going to go through it. So test it out again. It's getting closer. It's still too light. Might have overshot it. No, that looks good. Notice I'm not adding any water to this paint. Now just like scoop it up, spread it, scoop it up again. That'll make sure that you don't have anything that's called marbleizing, where you have the black and the white visible at the same time. It kind of has a tendency to look like marble. So you have both pigments sitting there without being mixed. You don't get a full gray. Getting closer. You can barely see it now, right? If I get it really close, you can kind of see it. So that's basically what it is. The further you go, and if I take it away from myself and I squint at it, if it fades into the other value, the value is close. Good enough for what we need. Okay, we don't have to be absolutely exact on this. All right. So what I would do is then mix up a big batch of this. Okay, so that big batch is going to go into this little container. And what does a big batch mean? It means one of these full. One of these little tiny containers full of paint. If you don't fill it up, you're going to end up having to mix that number 5 again. And if you're just slightly off, it's going to give you a bit of a hard time. Right? So you want to make sure that you mix a lot of this number 5. Because again, you're going to use it for multiple things. Right. So once I have that color mixed, put it into my little jar. I can just do that and scoop it in there. Okay. And then I can scoop out only what I need whenever I'm going to mix something else. So the next thing you want to do is bracket. So the first color that I would put down would be the white and then my black. So if I was looking at this, I'm going to use this as reference. I will put down my black and then put down my white. Actually, I have another board here. It's ready to go. So when you're testing, it's not necessary for you guys to tape it off. When you're done testing and you're actually going to go for the real deal, then you definitely want to mask it off this way. Okay, that'll ensure that you can just go over the space onto the tape, and you have a nice clean edge to edge width. All right. So going on to this. So I'm going to start off. I'll have my gray right there. You guys can see this in the frame, right? Okay. So test out how much water I have in my brush. I'm going to go for my white. I don't want to start with black because then my brush will have black in it. So I'm going to start with white. So the white is going to go onto the number 9 space. Go in one direction, try to get everything. Grab a little bit more and go in the opposite direction. Once it's kind of nice and flat, leave it alone. Okay, can't see the number 9 in there anymore, right? So that's all you need. I'm gonna clean this brush out. Got my water container. Clean that out. Make sure that there's no more white in the brush while wiping it down. It looks pretty good. So my black has a little bit of white in it, so it's going to give me the wrong value. Put down my black, and you'll probably have a lot of black left by the end of this class, but you definitely will be running out of white. And I'm going to put my black down. Same thing. Very little water, if any, in the brush. And then get it all the way to the edges. That's why you want to tape this off, so you get all the way into the little edges. And if you have too much water in this, and I'll show you guys what that looks like, too much water. Go in this direction, the opposite direction, and leave it alone. Okay? Now, if I had too much water in this, it gets grayish. So you'll know quickly if you have too much water in it. Too much water. See how that pulls around? So this will take longer to dry. And this paint, this is already dry. I can go another coat if I wanted to on that. This will just keep doing that. And every time I come back to it, I can pick it back up and then start messing with the quality of the paper. And now I have a disaster. Okay, so you want to really make sure that you manage the amount of water in your brush. This kind of paint requires very little brush, like a damp brush is fine. If there's too much water in your palette, if you're using the Stay Wet, it'll definitely seep into it. So you got to make sure that if you are having those issues and you can't figure out why it's coming out too transparent, you let me know, okay? And I can watch you. Just make sure that you can put your camera down to your stuff, and I can watch you paint and probably give you some sort of idea as to why it is that it's happening this way. All right. So now I would put down my gray. Again, just getting it into the edges so I get a nice little swatch. And then once I've covered everything, go in one direction, go in the opposite direction. And that's it. Does that make sense? Any questions?